I'm gonna send you all my immigration stuff, Chief.
All right, we
Got
are
you.
live.
I like that passion.
We are live. We are live. So yes, welcome. This is the Stay Legal podcast, and we are your hosts. My name is Attorney Justin Camper. We got attorneys from all across the country here, and I'm excited because we got a great topic today that we're going to talk about. Something that people ask us about. A very popular movie. We're going to do a movie review today on The Burial. And so we are all practicing attorneys. We do this in real life, okay? We're not actors. We do this in real life. We got real clients. And so we're going to give you our perspective on the movie and our thoughts on everything. But before we get into that, I want to introduce our distinguished guests. First, I want to introduce Jacoby Whitley, also known as the Dreaded Esquire, also known as the DC GOAT. Jacoby, say what's up to the people.
Good afternoon.
He's warming up, guys. He's warming up.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Justin, for all my monikers. Indeed, I'm sorry. Good morning or afternoon. Justin, thank you for laying out my monikers. I definitely appreciate that. Yes, I am Attorney Jacoby Whitley. I do practice in the District of Columbia, and I do practice very aggressively, and I am a very client-based attorney. And just so you guys know, of course, you probably know throughout the course of the podcast. However, I do practice business law. I can say this with a full chest because of DC's laws, baby. I practice cannabis law. I do some business immigration. I'm finishing up a family-based immigration matter for a friend, but particularly I'm focusing on business, estate planning, and we do a little bit of immigration as well, but we're shifting mostly to business and estate planning.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And I can still do a crim case. That does happen.
Okay. Yeah, so basically you get caught with anything or any business-related issues in DC.
In the District of Columbia, baby.
you call the Dreaded Esquire. You call Jacoby Whitley. So yeah, thanks for that introduction. And for all those who are listening, let us know who you are, where you're from, why you're watching. So, all right. So next, I want to introduce Attorney Shannon Buari. Okay, and this is one of the Indiana's finest civil practice attorneys. Really crushing heads. He represents the big guys. But so every now and then he represents the little guy. He represents the city of South Bend. He represents the government. He represents the big guy. But he's crushing heads. He's an enforcer. Say what's up to the people, Shannon Buari.
Shannon Buari. I'm here in South Bend, Indiana, but Justin overinflated my stats, which is not.
He's been in charge since Pete left.
I was about to say, those criminal guys tend to pad their stats a bit. And he started in the prosecutor's office, so it makes sense. But no, I do a little bit of everything on the civil side, no criminal.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the introduction. Last but certainly not least, all the way from the streets of Congo, we have one of the finest, distinguished attorneys in the Chicago land region. He was born speaking the law. Okay, he was born spitting facts. You can't shut him up. We gotta cut him through because he's not gonna stop. Okay, this man is a legal book. He was born for this. This is who he is. This is his purpose. And he has his own law firm, and we are so excited to have him here today so we can talk about this great topic. So say what's up to the people, Attorney Mayombo Banza.
Good morning, America. Good morning, world.
Mayumbo Ali Banza here from Banza Law. And indeed, I was born on Sunday morning. So that tells you a whole lot about the whole presentation and then exhorting skill set and stuff. But anyways, it's good to see you again. It's good to have you back here. I'm based in Chicago land. Um, I'm only one phone call away. If you need help or have any question, um, hey, 872-304-0384. That's me. So thank you.
All right. Okay, so yeah, I'm attorney Justin Camper again. I practice criminal defense in the state of Indiana. So let's talk about this movie, The Burial. Okay, so if you haven't seen it, it was a really great movie. It was about a lawyer named Willie Gary, who all of us had almost had a chance to meet at one point, or have met him actually. But he's known as the Giant Killer. He goes after big corporations, typically does personal injury, but this was like a one-off case for him where he represented a guy in a contract dispute. And so basically, just a little bit of, the synopsis of what happened, and then we can kind of give our own different perspectives. There was a business owner who owned funeral homes, who was having trouble with the insurance. He was in debt. He was having some financial issues. He decided that he wanted to sell part of his business to a company. They had a verbal agreement, a handshake agreement, and when it came down to signing the paperwork, they never signed it. Only one side signed it. The other side didn't sign it. And so my client, not my client, but the client was basically upset. He was losing money, and he decided to sue the supposed investor for not following through with the contract. And so he ended up hiring Willie Gary to be the lead attorney to help him with this, which is really odd because Willie Gary was a personal injury attorney, and he decided to represent this this contract dispute case because they felt that the guy was a big fish defendant, and they can get a lot of money out of this guy, and in the end they did. So I want to talk about a couple things. So the movie starts out in a black church. I thought it was very interesting how it played out. And Willie Gary's still living today, so he was actively a part of the script and things of that nature. The movie started out in a black church, and Willie Gary is just literally straight up preaching. I mean, you couldn't tell the difference between him and a Sunday preacher. I mean, he's preaching, and he's preaching about hope. And so, he has his Southern accent, he has his Southern twang, and he's got the crowd fired up. And so, Mayumbo, I want to go to Mr. Attorney Banza. I want to go to you because you say you were born on Sunday morning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, do you remember the scene where it starts out? He's preaching about hope. He has a crowd fired up. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think they started the movie with that scene?
For a lot of reasons. It could be maybe to show the demeanor of the individual as an attorney as far as performance. It could be the ability of showing how you can get the crowd, in this particular case, a jury, fired up and then in turn to you, right? It could also mean traditionally or culturally what a portrayal of how African American communities live and what their Sunday is like and what they're all about in terms of genuineness and commitment to God and God's work. It could also be, if you fast forward, because the movie had to do with what the church as an entity had suffered at the hands of the businessmen who will come in, even bribe the church leaders, right? Or maybe misinterpret things or mislead church leaders and take advantage of church leaders and use church leaders to give them clients from the church and mislead these church members. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole dynamic in that, and in that there's a lot of things that you can take from it.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna go to you, Kobe. I always want to give some context for people who may have not seen it. So eventually, they found out the defendant had actually made a donation to the National Baptist Convention so that people could sell their services, and they were basically screwing over people. So that's where Mayemba was talking about how the connection from the church in the beginning to the fact that the church was being misused. How there was a connection. But yeah, I'll go to you, the Dreaded Esquire.
So this reminds me of a story that my dad told me one time. So he was at work, right? And this guy of European descent was bragging about his son and saying that his son speaks really well or is a good public speaker because of his private school education. And my dad responded, well, my son's a great speaker as well because of his Sunday school education.
Okay.
Right? So shout out to Campbell's Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church. But that goes back because the Black church is such a vital institution in the Black community, right, that a lot of people in the Black community get their first opportunity to hone their skills in the Black church. And that's where that certain skills are incubated, especially public speaking. Oftentimes in a Black church, you got to get up in front of the church. You got to say a testimony. You got to read a Bible verse. Right. It's a lot of public times. What'd you say, Shannon?
No, the Easter play lines. Right?
That Easter, hey, that Sunday school quiz bowl, Sunday school conferences.
Right.
It's a lot. So also, I think a lot of Black litigators, male and female, right, men and women, I think something that we all have in common is the use of speech, and because the Black community has a history of storytelling. So how to tell a story is ingrained in us. When we all know, when we get together, we all telling stories, right? We all, even before this podcast,
right.
We every time we get on these podcasts, it's 15 minutes that the audience doesn't see of us telling stories, right? And so we have a very rhythmic way of telling stories, and we know how to connect with people. We know how to code switch, and we know how to connect with people, and we have to do these things daily for our survival and to help us with our upward mobility in the community. So a lot of Black litigators mirror their speech patterns and learn to connect with people, which translate how to connect with juries later on in the church. Right. So I think you will find every Willie Gary is rooted in the church. Every Johnny Cochran was rooted in the church. Every Justin Camper, every Jacoby Whitley, every Shannon Buari, and every Mambo Mbanza has a root and can trace the honing of their skills back to the church. Right. And so yes, it did tie in with that donation and how we found out later on that low-end group was exploiting the Black church. But I also thought it was speaking to how Willie Gary was able to communicate effectively and how those skills are probably honed and fine-tuned through his relationship with the church.
Yeah. I mean, that was perfectly articulated. Attorney Buari, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Cope did. I like the way Cope just presented that. But Willie Gary was one of 11, right? And there are he'll tell stories, and I've personally met him and seen him speak on numerous occasions. He'll tell the story about how basically the guys in his family that didn't follow his path or become the path of the parents, which were sharecroppers, they actually became Baptist preachers, right? So I think it's right along the lines of what Kobe said. But I also think if you listen to some of what he was saying, right, at the time Willie Gary came about, he was a charismatic African American attorney in the South. So if you listen to some of that, what he's saying in the church, he's saying that I'm Willie Gary here. Right out there, I'm still the N word. No matter what, I've reached this pinnacle of what some may seem a success, and yet I'm still a boy. Right, I'm still an N word. I'm still told to enter through the back door. I don't have to do that here. And I think the black church has symbolized that for black people since the beginning of time. Right. I mean, even on Sundays during slavery, although they weren't able to congregate per se, that's when the singing and the chanting and the carrying on. And I still think you see that to this day, right? I think in addition to what Kobe said and what Chief has said, I think you still see people go to the black church as people still at least see the black church as those pillars in the community where, I can come as I am. Although I might be, standing the person that made a black person mad because I had to represent somebody opposing to him or her during the week. On Sunday, we can let that guard down, and you know what? You one of ours, right? You know what I mean? So I think for me, I think it set the tone, or at least the foundation for what's to come. Go back to the Thurgood Marshall days, and even when Johnny Cochran was first practicing, they had to sit second chair to white guys and basically convey their argument through white counsel, right? Willie Gary had one of the first black law firms in Florida when he moved back after he finished law school. Well, who's going to trust this guy? And his very first case was I think he got maybe $250,000 for a woman who might have been injured in an accident, and then he had a successful criminal defense case. Well, black people were the ones who were utilizing his services at that time. And I know we'll get to it, but you see how uncomfortable white folk were when he wanted to take first chair. And it was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to not only take first chair, I'm going to bring in an all-black cast. And this is how we're going to do it. And there was pushback from that. So I do think the purpose of the opening scene of the church was multifaceted. Right? If there's nothing else that black folk could have resonated with in the movie, it was that piece. Right? If you know nothing about the law, if you don't know who Willie Gary is, if you only watched that movie because you saw Jamie Foxx, that opening scene, somebody somewhere was saying amen, as if he was really preaching the sermon.
Right.
I mean, that's because, again, I think the black church is one of those places where for this particular time, for these particular hours, we're all the same. We're all equal, right? So I could be the janitor sitting next to the crackhead, sitting next to the multimillionaire, and we all saying amen at the same time. So I think that's why, that particular scene hit home, and I think that's why it opened up. And again, I'm rambling, but when you hear him speak, he's real big on what his faith means to him, right? He'll tell you, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I never have. I pray daily. I would ask the courts for recess to pray, and you know what I mean. So he's real big on his faith. So I think that, like I said, I think that opening scene was multifaceted. I think there was a multifaceted approach. There was multiple things I think you can take from that opening scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I have much else to add to that. I think it was interesting how from that scene it went to very shortly to the courthouse, right? To the closing argument, to him preaching, quote unquote, preaching in the courthouse, right? Again, a very favorable judgment. And I think that, one thing that I often tell my clients, especially when the law is, we're arguing about certain areas of the law where it's very technical. And I say, listen, I can argue about this, I can argue about these technical things, but at the end of the day, this is going to trial. This is going to the jury trial. And I need to focus on the jury. The jury has the final say. The jury has actually more power than the judge in this moment, right? And so even when I'm preparing for the jury trial, I'm thinking about how can I sell this to a jury, because they are the decision maker, right? And so, if Willie Gary, I'm gonna just make a guess to say if Willie Gary was actually talking to, the judge, right, and he had to only do trials in front of the judge, I'm not sure he will be as successful as he is. But because he knows how to connect with the people in the way that our American system is set up, we can have a jury trial. Then that's why he was able to win and be successful throughout his career. We did get a comment from Return on Investment, insightful group of brothers. Power to you all. Power to you, Return on Investment. Thank you for listening in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free. We're talking about The Burial. We're talking about the Jamie Foxx movie. We're just giving our movie review. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about was, I wanted to talk about the next big scene, which was we get on there and he's doing his closing argument, and I found that closing argument to be fascinating. And I actually took some things from that scene and used it in real life, and it actually worked. But I'm not gonna say it all right now. But yeah, I actually took some little tips from him. And, Jamie Foxx acted as Willie Gary. But so I want to know what your thoughts were on that first closing argument where he's going at it. My client was a drunkard, and my client. I wish I had. Actually, I got I'm gonna play it real quick. I actually have the scene ready. So give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Sorry, I should have had this ready. Give me 1 second. So
send me the link.
I'm about to play it right here. So just give me 1 second. I'm just trying to make sure that I
come on, y'all.
Right.
How you gonna treat me like that? Send me the links.
Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. So let's just go ahead and play it.
Justin, no sound. Justin, I think you might have it in your earphones, bro.
Okay.
Look at that Shannon suit.
Yeah, it still ain't no sound, bro.
Can you hear it?
No.
Okay.
We can hear you though, but not the footage. That's a client of mine in the comments. My homeboy.
So you guys couldn't hear it?
We couldn't. No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm not sure why it's not that, but you guys remember that scene?
Yeah, I remember the scene.
Okay.
Maybe your output may need to be switched.
Yeah, probably playing through your head.
Sound output.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
It's okay.
Yeah, but basically the scene goes where, he's basically just talking to the audience, and he's just, he's hard, he's strong, he's even making he's even throwing his client under the bus. Yeah, my client was drunk. My client was he was having a bad day. He was, doing all these things. But the key thing is that my client had a green light. And so, and then once he got done, the audience busted and stood up and clapped. Okay. So what were your thoughts on that scene, Attorney Bonds?
A couple of things. The first is trying to humanize the client and talk about and address with respect to humanizing the client, and make sure that he relates to the juror as well, because by that time he done already read and learned much about the juror who could relate to the client. That's one thing. So he didn't want the opposing party to come in and mention those things at first and in a negative tone, so he can come back and repair it. Going back to the Georgia case recently, when the prosecutor, I think Arbery, I guess, the prosecutor mentioned these facts, saying that this guy was dirty and he had dirty nails and dirty feet and dirty hands. She threw it out there and made a big deal to the world. Why are you coming in as defense attorney mentioning these things here? But then they caused damage at the time they did, right? So you want to jump in, mention those things first, right? In a humble way. That's the second thing. You are humble, accepting all these things, that we all are human. I accept that I did it. I was this, I was that. But we're not here because of my drunkenness. No. We're here because I had the green light and he is at fault. So don't let them distract you on that one piece, right? So I think he did well on that aspect. But then there's only certain things that you can really say, though, if they're you think they're going to resonate well with the audience or with the jury. Things that are unknown to the opposing party, and things that really are humble to say, but not necessarily advancing the case. So you might as well just hold off and not mention those. I think it was well put, to at least to that extent. He was trying to bind with the jury. We human. We do this, do that. Even in the case of in the murder case, you'll see they will portray the criminal or the suspect, the defendant, with his struggles with substance abuse, and they mention it. Why? Because the country is all about rehabilitation, pushing rehabilitation, showing that he has struggled and he's made efforts, but because of our humanity, it keeps failing, right? You will see a defendant, the defense attorney mention that in their closing argument, just why? To humanize the individual. In this case, that's, I believe, what Willie Garrett was trying to do.
So I think I figured it out. So just let me try one more time. Let me know.
The end of this man's life depends on y'all.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
How that? Now, I got some secrets about my client. And I'm gonna tell you right now, my client ain't no good. He ain't. My no good client, Clovis Tubbs, on the day of the accident, was drunk. That's right. Drunk. Tanked. Wasted. Toe up from the floor up. Matter of fact, you want to check the numbers? The numbers say 0.4% blood alcohol level. It's right here. Inebriated, if you want to say a big word. Not only that, he was going through mental things. He said he was suffering from depression. Some would say that he was suicidal, and we have the proof of that because when he was talking to his therapist, he told his therapist, "I'm feeling so bad, I wish I could get in my car and ride straight into a tree." But he couldn't do that. My no good client couldn't do that. You know why? His license is revoked. Ain't even got a license. So what'd he say? I'm gonna get me a bicycle and I'm gonna do it that way. And that's exactly what he did. He get on his bicycle and rode over there to Alvin and Fine. Y'all know the liquor store over there, huh? And they got him a big old bottle of scotch and they downed it. And what'd he do? Get on that bicycle and he rode straight towards the highway, towards traffic. And then here comes Mr. 18-wheeler. Fitching company, not paying no attention to nothing. Coming down Elm, and what did he do? Bam! He hit Clovis. He hit him. He should be dead. He should be dead. Y'all know that song, I'm looking for a miracle? That's a miracle right here. That's why we asking for you to look in your hearts and your soul and award him that mere $75 million. You know why? They got it. They got it. They got the bank to do it.
They sure do.
But they know they big, trying to step on the small man. And then you say, well, why $75 million, Willie Gary? I'm going to tell you why. Because we have the evidence. The evidence will prove that there was negligence. Because No Good Clovis had one thing going good for him at that time. Even though he was drunk, tank, tore up from the floor up, depressed and suicidal, my no good client Clovis Tubbs had him a green light.
Okay. All right. So you guys.
Justin, can I go?
That was magic.
You know what?
That was magic. That was magical.
Trying to hold it
All
in.
right. All right. It's all right. So
Chef's kiss. Go ahead, Cole.
I can go? All right.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus. Y'all know this is my jam. Everybody that know me knows it's my jam. I'm trying to be respectful and give everybody else their time.
Right.
But this is what I do. Look, y'all.
Okay.
This is levels. Okay. This is levels. This is Mambo, Shannon, Justin. We've all articulated as attorney the brilliance in this closing arguments. But we're just going to highlight some things for some people, right? Now, to help bring these points.
That was closing.
That was the closing.
That was closing.
It might have been the opening. Either way, it worked.
Evidence will prove.
Right. Yeah, if you said the evidence to prove, it's the opening for sure.
Okay, right. But I thought.
But check it. Either way, let me tell you something. So we are familiar with this tactic. Everyone in America is familiar with this tactic. It's the scene from 8 Mile. It's the last rap battle when Eminem knows that he's going to be called the white kid from the trailer park and all of that. And he goes first, right? And he so you have to understand, he realized I need to go first because I'm about to use this tactic. And so to disarm my opponent, I'm going to say everything negative about me because I know his whole argument is based on that. And so once I go ahead and lay his argument out for him, I've just taken his whole argument away. And now he is off balance, right? And now he has to go off script and come up with a whole new argument because I've already taken his away. And there's also not what the first thing people hear. They more so remember the last part of what they hear. And knowing that, that's why you want to lead with the negative so you can land on the positive because that's going to resonate and linger more, right? That's why the last thing he said, and he said it so simply, my client had a green light. And that's another thing.
So everything else is
a lot of lawyers are so pedigreed and has all these degrees. They went to the best schools in America and all of that, right? And so they need a middleman. My words of my brother Shannon to talk to people, right? Their degrees in their high level of intellect has disconnected them from common people and common vernacular, right? To really connect to a person, you need to speak like a person, right? So if I really wanted to connect to a Spanish family, if I was able to speak in Spanish, they let their guard down because they start to think, oh, he's one of us, so my point gets across more. So if you saw in the background, that was a black jury. And you hit on about Willie Gary and black juries, right? So he was able to articulate, or he took a speech. Even though he knew all the legal jargon, he didn't use it. He used common vernacular, commonplace speech that lay people could process and resonate. He used, I think he said, my client ain't no good, right? That's a black phrase that people know and resonate. And also going back to the black church, it's very call and response, right? For example, God is good.
Right, all the time.
There we go, right? So he's doing things to get that call and response, right? Because even if the jury just mouths it, you know you just connected. And so he keeps doing these little points with the call and response to make sure he's connecting with the jury. He's speaking to the jury at their level, right? At common English that they can understand. He's using the pattern of a preacher, right? Someone else that they can relate to. And he used the 8 Mile technique where you lay out all the negative things first. That is also a technique explained in this book. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, who's an FBI hostage negotiator, and he breaks down his tactics. I'm sure you understand it. I already know. And in that, it's called, in his book, he calls it doing an accusation audit, where he uses that technique and he advises people in negotiations. When you start the negotiations, say the weakness of your side first, right? And use that to help disarm your counterpart in negotiations. And I just think this is beautiful. And then another thing, people love music. All walks, all relations, all creeds, right? We love music, right? That's why the performing artist Jelly Roll is blowing up right now, right? Because he can speak. His music resonates across racial lines, right? Which now has him Grammy nominated, right? Because the music is something that brings people together, right? People can relate to songs. That's why he referred to a song lyric that everybody would know. He said, don't you know the song? And then he also had people finish the lyric, which is another call and response to make sure that he connected with the jury. And then he also said that his client should be dead, right? To help bring in some more empathy. Then he also used a comparison, big versus small, right? So you're talking to a group of people that feel like they're the underdog. So they're going to relate to the David and Goliath, big versus small analogy. So these are all very high level social engineering and psychological tactics that are being deployed and that we are now examining. And yes, it started off with I call it the 8 Mile technique, where you lead off with the negatives, but then it went in to call and response, using song lyrics and using common language to also connect with the jury. And it's masterful.
It was.
Yeah,
I agree with Cole. I think he took the wind out of their sails, and I think we know just from doing this, it's not uncommon to try to get people to stray from the facts to focus on the person, especially for you, Justin. You're in the criminal defense world, right? So it's not uncommon for me to say, Shannon was a drunk, a domestic violence abuser, bring up a whole bunch of irrelevant points if we're sticking to the fact that this is a case about negligence, right? If this is a case truly about negligence, people blowing a green light versus a red light, it's somewhat irrelevant that Shannon was drunk. Now, would that play in if it was it could play in, right? But I think, as Cove alluded to, I'm going to take the wins out of there. You heard it here first. Like I said, I'm telling you, he's no good.
right.
But even then, people who are no good, and again, Justin, you're in this space,
right?
They still deserve a fair shake, fair chance, right?
Right.
And just because somebody may have downed scotch that night and wanted to kill himself and didn't have a driver's license, does not mean he should have been blindsided by an 18-wheeler who ran the red light, right? So I think everything Cove said was 100% correct. But what I like, though, is the one. I think he took it back to the black church, right? I'm looking for a miracle.
Right.
That's a song people know. And then what I like at the same time is he downplays how much $75 million is. Right? So he says, I'm asking for a mirror, like that's chump change, a mere $75 million, right? Why $75 million, you ask? Well, because my no good, whatever client who's a drunk is now going through some stuff, and the company that hit him got the money to pay him. So why don't we just in a roundabout way, right? That mere $75 million may help my no good client get out of his. You may help push him forward. So I thought it was amazing, and again, man, it I think is indicative of who Willie Gary is as a trial attorney. Like I said, I've heard him speak at a Nabosa conference. and it wasn't even a closing, and everybody was just like, "Yo, that was amazing." And it was just a regular speech. I mean, and to be quite frank, here's a guy who got a $23 billion with a $1 billion verdict from a cigarette company that a lady sued on behalf of her husband dying from smoking cigarettes, and he got a $23 billion. I mean, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall hearing that closing argument, right? But I think like Kobe said, and I probably want to say that this might have been an opening, but you take the wind out of the sails if you tell me because I'm gonna get you on the stand, Mr. War. Are you a drunk? Yes. Were you drunk the night you were on your bicycle? Yes. I mean, so you knew it was coming. So let's head it up. And then it's like Kobe said, I think sometimes when I've heard it before, certain stuff gets tuned out. I've heard this before. So now I'm not paying as much attention if I'm a drunk, right? Because I heard this story already. We heard it in the opening. Mr. Gary will probably call him as a direct, get solicited. So if you cross-examining, and now I'm going to start to tune out, right? And again, I think it was crazy. It's a whole bunch, I think, happened in that. Because now I paint you out as the big guy beating up the little guy. And everybody roots for the little guy, right? That's the story of David and Goliath. Right. Nobody rooted for Goliath. Right. Everybody rooted for David. So now once I paint you out to be this big corporate conglomerate, man, listen. It's at this point, it's just a matter of how much am I going to give at this point, right? And I don't know if where they were is I'm gonna say comparative negligence, but again, he was just getting away. He was getting rid of all of it. You take the wind out of their sails. So, like Kobe said, now they're back to the drawing board. Right. They're back to the drawing board. So yeah, I thought it was like I said again, indicative of who Willie Gary really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more thing, Justin.
Sure.
Just for practicing attorneys out there, or just anybody going into negotiation, I also think listing all the weaknesses of your case out helps you prepare, right? So instead of, some people like to ignore them, right? And we'll just not try to bring them up. But I think if you prepare around them and address them and actually look up proper defenses and plan your arguments, like I know they're going to come with this because we know this is a weakness, and instead of ignoring it, helps you present your case better.
Absolutely. A lot of good insight. Go ahead.
One thing I did want to hit on though, I think Cole also said something when he was talking about what he saw that was very insightful, and I think it is to make sure that when you're explaining stuff to people, you assume they have no idea what you're talking about, and you have to convey it to them to at the level they understand it. And I challenge all of you to do this. But one thing I do before any evidentiary hearing or any trials that I do, I rehearse with my 7-year-old. Right? If she understands it, I know a layperson can, right? But it's my 7-year-old, and if she says, "You know what, Dad, I have no idea," it could be foreseeable that a 37-year-old who doesn't have experience in what I'm talking about has no idea either. So if I can get a 7-year-old to truly understand what it is I'm talking about, I think I can get some. And I think, like Cole said, he could have spoken above and beyond. I mean, we have professors that do that. We know that at Bob Woods, like, go dumb it down. But as the professors tended to talk up here, if you didn't get it, you tend to just kind of check out. But I definitely rehearse and go over arguments with my 7-year-old prior to, and if she can understand it, then I'm confident that other folk can as well.
The piggyback off of you, Shannon, reminds me of Denzel and John Q, baby. Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old child. Like, man, the great success leaves clues, man. It's out there, man. They have left some great clues to help us get points across and convey things. Absolutely.
Right. So moving on, a little bit getting to the crux of the argument, the legal, we are lawyers here and we all have practiced business law. It was a handshake deal regarding interest in the company, buying interest in the company. And from my understanding, they tried to renegotiate the terms after the handshake deal. Only one person signed the contract, and as a part of the deal, the guy who is an investor wasn't supposed to still keep selling burial insurance in that area, and he still did. Did they really have a contract? Attorney Bonza, I mean, you're looking at this case, you take the emotions out of it, you take the theatrics out of it. Did the players really deserve to win $500 million off of a contract dispute?
I would say yes.
Okay.
And for a lot of reasons, but I'm only going to name a few. Generally, as we all practitioners know, only 25% of what happens in court, or 25% that control the outcome of a case, depend on the lawyer. 75% of the main depends on a lot of other factors: the jury, the performance, the demeanor of the defendant, the demeanor of the plaintiff, the judge, where you are, and everything else. And I believe that had come to play in this case. Me, on my with my humble view, in light of what the law requires, I believe they had a contract. We're going from whether there was performance after that agreement. We're going from whether there was what was the conduct. Because here, the truth is, we had offer and acceptance, mutual assent, consideration. We had intent to enter into a legal relation, and we had performance on one party. But also,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before you keep going. Let me ask you this real quick. What was the consideration?
The consideration here was, okay, hey, listen, I'm going to offer that you take this, but then so you won't do business the way you have been doing. Okay. And then it leads to where we have this idea of statute of fraud as well, which requires certain type of contract to be in writing, right? And which means writing and signed, right? So now we do also know that statute of fraud has its exceptions, and some of those exceptions require looking to the conduct of the party afterwards, whether there was a signature, and if there is a signature, who are you enforcing the signature to? Is it the signer or the other party, right? And also special circumstances. In all these cases, I mean, all these factors led to the ultimate win in the case. Not only did they play an important role, but I think that most of it had to do with the issues that came up after the contract. This is pretty much the O.J. Simpson case. You turn the case against the prosecutor, instead of dealing with whether there was a contract or not. They ended up discussing the exploitation of the church, right? And then that was what led, and they even enter into their ideas or acquaintances or relationship with the KKK and everything else, profile, personality, and everything. So to me, I believe there was a contract, right? There was a meeting of a mind, right? But did that alone make the control the outcome of the case? No. Other things control the outcome of the case. The exploitation of the Black church, especially Black members.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hand it over to the Trader Esquire. Same question: was there a contract? And on the legal merits of the case, should Willie Gary have won that?
Okay. So it depends.
Hey, no lawyer me.
But all right, so this is what I will lead off with.
Okay.
The strategy from Lowen, the Canadian guy, right, the guy that was supposed to purchase
Yeah.
Right, the investor. Brilliant play, right? Because whether the existence of a contract is or not, right? When you file that complaint, right? Part of what you have to lay out in the complaint, and one of the factors or elements that you have to prove for a breach of contract claim, this is the question that you're alluding to, Justin, is was there an enforceable contract? Right? And the fact that two things. One, it started off as an oral contract. Now you got to bring in witnesses and all that stuff to prove the existence of the contract, right? So you won't be able to prove it without going to court with an oral contract. That's basically what it comes down to. You cannot prove the existence of an oral contract without coming to court, right? Also, when it comes to the signatures. Oh, but let me go back before I leave the oral contract. What Mambo said about the statute of frauds, I don't know if the statute of frauds would apply to this contract because it wasn't a consideration of marriage. It wouldn't take over a year to perform. I mean, I don't know what the cash price was, but give money to me, I get company. Like that shouldn't take more than a year to complete, right? It's not a construction project, right? We don't know if he owned the funeral homes because Tommy Lee Jones was in financial straits. So he might not have owned the property. So we don't know if this was a contract for the sale of property or just the LLCs,
Right.
Just the company, right? So it might not have been a contract for the sale of land. It wasn't a contract to be an executor. It wasn't a contract for the sale of goods for over $500. You might get in there, you might be able to, but I would distinguish a good from a business, right? And then I would look at the UCC to see if a LLC could be considered a good. If not, that didn't require a contract, and it wasn't a suretyship. It wasn't a third party saying that, hey, if they don't pay, I'll pay, right? So I'm not quite sure if it needed to be in writing, right? So the oral contract, if all the terms were there, the parties were there, they had an exact sale price, even if it was the consideration was mutual promises and not cash, right? Even if it was a promise to pay in the future and I promise to give you this, if the mutual promises can still be consideration. But I can't remember, I think it was an actual price that he was supposed to pay, right? All that to say, you would have to prove the existence of this oral contract in court through litigation, through witnesses, through affidavits, through depositions, so on and so forth. Basically, Tommy Lee Jones would have to spend a lot of money to prove the existence of the oral contract. That's the oral contract, right? That's what I'm saying. It depends. It could be enforceable, but to really determine if it's enforceable, it's going to cost the plaintiff a lot of money to prove it in court, which is what Lowen wanted, because he was counting on Tommy Lee Jones that to be financially situated to pay those type of legal fees and that type of legal research and litigation, okay? So in discovery. So that's one on the oral. Now, when you come with the signatures, it was only signed by one party, right? And it has to be signed by the party for which enforcement is sought, right? So if Tommy Lee Jones signed it and not Lowen, Tommy Lee Jones would be seeking enforcement against Lowen, but Lowen didn't sign the contract, right? So that becomes another quagmire. Now, you might be able to show the contract as people's intent, and this is proof that we did come to the meeting of the minds. If we had the price, hopefully UCC gap fillers come in, whatever, right? The long story short, Lowen set this thing up so that the only way you could prove the existence of the contract, which you have to do before you get into the elements of breach, is going to cost Tommy Lee Jones money and time, which he was betting Tommy Lee Jones did not have, right? So based on that, Tommy Lee Jones, in my opinion, if this was real life, stood a good chance of losing, right? And from the movie, he was on the ropes as well, but he was on the ropes for a different reason. Right. They tied the race card into there, stuff of that nature. Right. But this is what good discovery does, and why it costs a lot of money when it comes to the discovery phase, and you got to have that bag set aside because you want your lawyer to do this type of research. The discovery allowed them to discover, oh, you have been doing predatory lending, if you will, or predatory contracts with multiple Black churches. And you actually went to this conference to get as many Black churches at one time as possible. And bringing that in, I think, led to a punitive damages, right? To say that we have to up it to 500 million, the damages or the verdict to judgment, the 500 million, to discourage this type of activity and this type of predatory contracting in the future, right? And so I think in movie wise, that's how they got there. But in real life, with that information, you know how real life goes. Did they discover this after the discovery period?
Right.
Was there notice? Did you amend the witness list? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, did you already have this evidence in the evidence list? Is the whole thing, right? In real life, would this evidence have gotten into court, right? And allowed them to be victorious, right? But I just think what that does, that piece that's explained how they were able to get up to that $500 million, I think it was punitive damages. Right, so to stop this type of predatory actions in the future. So in real life, if this played out, I don't know if Tommy Lee Jones would have won. I don't know. I'm just uncertain. There's possibilities both ways, but I'm uncertain because I don't know if he would have been able to prove just on the basis of the oral contract all the terms and things of that nature through the witness testimony. And then with the contract, he would have to run into that scenario that the person which he was seeking enforcement upon did not sign the contract. But I'm going to defer to Shannon because he's smarter than me. Shannon?
You silly. So, but I think, I'm going to agree with both Chief and Kobe's analysis. But I think for purposes of the movie kind of downplayed what really actually happened. So Lowen bought out O'Keefe's some of his funeral homes, but in an original deal, he agreed that so O'Keefe had, I believe, life insurance companies too, right? So with the funeral homes, he would also sell life insurance through those funeral homes. Lowen purchased a couple funeral homes, and the deal was, even though I own the home, we'll still run your life insurance company through these homes. Lowen then stopped running O'Keefe's life insurance companies through these homes he was purchasing, and O'Keefe filed a breach of contract claim. Prior to, I believe, 1995 is when all of this was supposed to transpire. He filed a breach of contract claim prior to 1995 and won on that claim. And part of that, those winnings were, he was, not O'Keefe, Lowen was to adhere to the terms of the original agreement, which were, I buy the funeral home, but we still use O'Keefe Insurance Company. And then in 1991, I believe it was, O'Keefe filed a breach of contract claim because he wasn't adhering to the agreement. In 1991, basically, Lowen was ordered to adhere to the agreement, and he breached it again in 95. So given those facts, I think there's definitely a case for why there was changes, handshakes, you know what I mean? But I think for the sake of the movie, to probably not get as complicated as you would, because when I first watched it, I'm like, there's no way. I mean, because everything they would have let in was parallel evidence, like all these agreements. But I'm like, there has to be more than just what they agreed to on that handshake for all this other stuff to come in. And I think that's kind of how you get to where the actual breach of contract claim came. So there were other instances that happened prior to that big $500 million verdict being issued in 1995 or so. When this case, when the movie actually picked up, there were other agreements between the parties, and then Lowen continued to breach those agreements. As Kobe said, I think in hopes that O'Keefe would just eventually go bankrupt or be so strapped for cash that I can dangle a check out in front of him and he just kind of take the money. But when my man said it feels good, but no, so I think, in a nutshell, I think the way the movie did it, they probably could have laid that foundation or given a little bit more background to how they got to the second breach of contract claim, basically. But just like based on how the movie presented it, I don't know if there was a valid contract. But knowing the facts behind it, I think you can say this was for cinematic purposes, right? Okay. I mean, they could have made a movie on just the multi layers of contract law, right? So I mean, I think for sake of time and to keep my answer relatively brief, knowing the facts behind it, yes. What they portrayed in the movie, I think you'd have a hard time saying that was an actual contract unless you can get into the specific performance, promissory estoppel, quantum merit type claims.
Right.
I think it'd be hard to say. And if you could, I think at that point you're looking at damages solely, not punies. Actual damages and not punies.
Right.
So, but I think the movie did a little disservice just in the way it showed, because now you got cats out there thinking they can shake hands. Only one person signed and now can get $500 million, and by no means is that the case.
There's another thing that from what Council Buhari just explained, it's suffice it to say that plenty of elements required for the contract to exist are present in this here. We even had consideration, according to the facts provided. We also have equitable consideration in this particular situation, which is basically the conduct of, not only that, the conduct of the parties after they have agreed to something or signed something. According, there's a chain of activities that took place between the parties that led to the final moment of their lacking a signature of one party. But if you look at their conduct prior to that, there is ground to say that the party had an agreement and they had a consideration and there was a meeting of a mind. One party simply failed to sign, either unintentionally. However, they breached literally because they run the insurance company through another company, which had already been addressed in a previous communication. Right? So those are the facts that the court will consider in that type of situation. And to me, although I would love to say it depends, but I firmly believe that the conduct, especially of the parties in this situation, call for an existence of a contract that should have been enforced by the court. But also going to the punitive damages. The judge did not give the punitive damage. It's the jury that gave that award of punitive damage. And the punitive damage is generally awarded. Classic thing is when the conduct of party is so reckless and wanton with a disregard of the other parties being or well-being, etc. In this particular situation, the way they sold the exploitation card, the jury could do nothing else but give punitive damage. You exploiting family. I had a testimony where, the church called me, they told me this and that, I signed the paperwork, and they didn't do anything after that. They stopped taking my calls. That's bribery. That's stealing in a broad daylight. And guess what? That was enough to award a judgment for punitive damages. And I assume, as my Council Buhari stated, they went through all these things after discovery was finished, because you only make a call for motion for punitive damages after 30 days after discovery is over. And I think for the sake of cinema, they didn't get into that, but I think that was possibly the ground for it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight the fact that from a legal standpoint, that was a very, very shaky. Now, with your extra facts, that I can see why they may have won that. But I mean, based off what I'm seeing, I'm like, I don't think they would have won this based off the merits.
But I think that was for the sake of one
Right.
time, and then two
Right.
in a movie, like just to, okay.
Right.
But like, yeah, because again, man, Cass is about to start filing lawsuits. Like, $500 million after watching that movie.
Right. So another important thing I wanted to point out, he pulled out a third mortgage to pay his trial costs. Right. And one thing I have to explain, especially in civil, is hey, trial costs. You know. Now it worked out for him. Do it work out for everybody, Shannon? No. You know, so
I think that's the other side, man, and that people should at least know and or understand is even if you have an attorney that says, you know, we'll take a third of recovery if there's recovery, you still have expenses that could amount to crazy dollar amounts to where an individual may still end up coming out of pocket or just reducing their recovery. I mean, you're talking about expert witnesses, expert testimony. Yeah, so I mean, trials are expensive.
Yeah.
And I believe in real life that went for maybe 65, maybe 70 days. So you're talking about, you know, on average, right? I mean, you're talking 3 days a week. I mean, most of the stuff you see around here is 2-3 days,
right.
a week, 2 weeks tops if it's a crazy person
Right.
laying in bed.
Right.
But for something to go 70 days,
Right.
I mean, that's insane.
Right. Right.
What do you estimate the legal fees at 70 days, man? You think it cracked 100K?
I think definitely hit that.
Oh yeah, man. He got a third of 500 million, bro. So I mean, but I'm sure his billable is probably nowhere near what our billable is, right? I mean,
That's
I'm
a good
sure
point.
Gary Bill at probably 5, 6. If I were a gambler, I would bet on the fact. I bet you Willie Gary's hourly rate is in the thousands.
Yeah, for sure.
He's not billing at $260 an hour like me. You know, I mean,
hey, I bill it at 1,000. So no,
it's over. Justin bills at 1,000. So look, can you make it so I can share my screen, Justin?
Let me see.
Maybe not. So look, I'm just gonna put this down here, and then y'all can click. Let's see. Wait a minute. So let me see. Private chat. Here, I'm about to just send you something. If you could just click on it to share with the group, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. All right. Okay. You want me to just okay, just pull
I gotta go, y'all. I gotta go practice now.
Real quick. Just see what I'm talking about, though, Cole. You click on it.
I got you.
No, I saw what you're talking about. That's why I said I gotta go practice right now.
That's what I'm saying. So like,
right. 11,000
billable. 11,000.
Yeah, $11,000 right, an hour.
Come on, man. A client hourly rate of $11,000 an hour.
Yeah. Wow.
What?
But that's 10 hours.
Listen, but you hear me?
Wow.
Hey, bro. And I'm at 260 and folks are like, oh, that's too much. Okay. I'm undercharging. But you said, Justin, you said 1,000 and you can't get people to call you back?
Oh, man.
$11,000 an hour billable rate?
Wow.
On, like,
wow, that's
insane.
That's insane. Wow.
So
I mean,
that's why I need a mere $75 million for my company.
It's coming.
I need a mere $500
Wow.
It's coming.
Yeah. So it costs. So, you know, that's some people get lucky with straight contingency, which, like you said, still some costs in there, but trial costs. So keep that in mind. I thought it was good. I thought it was cool that. So when you go on a trial, a line from the movie I liked was he said, "Litigation is war." I'd rather somebody shoot me in my head than to lose. Like I was whoa. But that's how intense litigation is. I mean, trial can be. It feels like war. Like it feels like, it feels like war.
Justin, if I could, I'd say lawyering in general, bro.
Yeah.
It ain't just litigation, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, hammering out deals sometimes.
Uh-huh.
I know my umbo feels that way about his immigration cases.
Uh-huh.
That he's going to war for his clients against USCIS and whoever that.
Right.
Right. And he's like, no, we got to prepare for this interview. I can't have you going there like that. You want me to come with you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Why they asking for this? No, we already proved this. So whether it's immigration, contracts, man, I don't care if it's a traffic ticket. Mm-hmm. I think every lawyer takes the approach. It's us against them, and we're going to war. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna be honest with you. If your lawyer don't think like that, you need to get new counsel.
Oh man, you about to get a lot of people fired, Kobe.
And my problem, y'all should be fighting. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I don't get paid $11,000 an hour, but if I did,
you going to
I'm parachuting in if I have to. You understand me? Hey, parachuting, bro.
Air Force One.
Parachute. And on that, I don't understand. I don't care what side of political aisle you are. I don't understand how Trump's attorney. I'm saying this I'm record me because I'm confused. Okay. How you got paid $2.5 million. $2.5 million. And you got problems. I'm not saying that entering evidence ain't the easiest thing. Actually being in trial, entering evidence, going through all the motions is not easy. But for $2.5 million, ain't nobody in the office you can practice against. Ain't no CLE you can take. That baffles me. That completely.
I'm not following you.
So what I understand is in this last litigation, I forget her name, and I want to destroy it. I just say Trump's latest attorney. From what I don't know if this is true. From what I heard, this is hearsay. I don't know if it's true. I haven't checked the numbers, but I heard that her fee was about, or what she had accumulated in billables was around $2 million in that representation. Then I'm also hearing, this is from Twitter, but it is what it is, that she had problems entering the evidence. And we already know it's on the record that she didn't check the jury demand box. That baffles me because you could have spent money on practicing with other attorneys, hiring more experienced attorneys to help guide you in the process. You could have paid somebody to second chair you, all of that. I just don't understand, man, how these people posture to the cameras that, I'm fighting for my client, this, that, and the third. But when you look at the billables and the actual work product, it don't make sense. I got a problem with that. When we get paid a way lesser fee and we fight.
Right.
We fight. We stay up late nights. We in the shower thinking about cases. When they driving, Justin changing his baby diaper, thinking, oh man, that was a brilliant idea. I'm just sorry, guys. I had to get that off my chest. I'm sorry.
But the thing is this, Cole. To that attorney's credit, right? I mean, I think the judge input in a case can throw you off balance as well while you performing.
That's 2.5.
Yeah, I get it. I recall the judge telling her, counsel, that is evidence 101. Move on. Counsel, that is evidence 101. Ask and answer. Right? So when the judge is already
biased towards you, it does hurt. It does stop.
Telling you
I get what you're saying.
It's evidence 101.
Yeah.
and it's already out there in court. So you're thinking your next thing, you think the damage you've caused, what did I just do, and things like that. And sometimes judges can help advance. Oh, counsel, did you mean to say that is what? Oh, yes, Your Honor, that's what I really meant to say. But we move on with the case instead of, because this is a politicized case as well. So we move on in a direction where we are trying to work in the sake of judicial efficiency to advance the case rather than to create other nonsensical type of issues like the ones that the council did. I mean, she's been performing for the longest. It's okay to kind of ask a question wrong when it's been asked and answer, or present sense impression, or it can't come in because it's, how do you authenticate a photograph? Not all of them.
Barry disagrees. 2.5 million.
I agree. But this would have been an issue in a case where the judge might have been a little more
biased. No, I agree with that.
So here's my take, right? Go ahead. I think sometimes folk associate a dollar amount with being good, right? And this is not a knock to what you're saying, Kobe, but is her fee 2.5 because she's in private practice and that's what she bills at? Or is her fee 2.5 because she's at one of these top Am Law 100 law firms and they've set a billable rate and they really don't know if she's adequate or if she's up to par or not, right? So, and Justin and I, we do lunch relatively often, and this is kind of some of the stuff that we bounce off each other. I know people at big law firms here that have way less years of experience than anybody on this phone call, but they're billing at $450, $500, $600 an hour because their firm says they have to, right? But at the end of the day, I would put it, any of us up against the guys I'm thinking about and the gals I'm thinking about now, and I would almost guarantee victory for anybody on this podcast. And at the same time, I guarantee. Now, does that mean Cass is undercharging? The price might have just gone up. You know what I mean? But I guarantee, and Justin, you've seen it. I mean, you practice here in St. Joe County. You've been against some of these prosecutors. And our prosecutors are a little different, right. Or you've heard or come behind some of these attorneys who tout themselves to be top dogs, and it's
right. I could have did that,
right. And he or she getting 3 times what I'm charging,
right?
And you filed a motion in limine,
right?
And you trying to get stuff excused that wasn't even gonna come in anyway, right? And it's like, what? So you wasted an hour to file that motion so you could bill a client $500,
right?
But you could have taken. So I think that's it too. So I'm with, and again, man, like folk that knew me from Valpo, all of you all did. I would talk about Willie Gary like he was Johnny, right? Because Johnny was on the criminal side. I knew I wasn't going to be on the criminal side. Kobe tell you, bro, we look at the website, he's sitting out front with the Bentleys and the Rolls Royces behind him like, yo, this is it.
Right.
The wings of justice, the plane. But if you listen to his speeches, it's always been about, bro, I'm the little guy. Right. I'm going here. I'm the giant killer for a reason, right?
Right.
He's in the movie. He said, I like when they bring in these big top attorneys from these big firms and I beat them. And now some of them, like he offered Journey Smollett, hey, if you ever need a job, I got you. You know what I mean? Like you can come work for me. Right. But so, and I think that's it. Like I'm doing something now, man. I'm representing a guy who had Lowe's come in to do something in his house. And it's me. I filed my appearance. It's just me. I sue Lowe's. 5 attorneys filed their appearance on this case.
Wow.
I'm like, here we go. Right? I mean, but here we go. Right. Now, I hired you to do work. And they from big time, top 100 law school. Law firm. Right. But Lowe's has the money to shut out that type of. Right. So, and we talking maybe 50 grand, 60 grand in damages, maybe. But nonetheless, Lowe's felt compelled. Literally, there's 2 partners and 3 associates who filed their appearance on this matter. So for me, it's like, well, do I go find somebody else to file their appearance, or do I dig in and channel my inner Willie Gary? And then I say, let's get to it. But I do think. If she's solo and she's billing at $11,000 an hour and couldn't get that in and submitted a $2.5 million fee, I'd take issue. If she's at one of these top 100 where they want you to bill at $1,200 and then it's Trump, so we're gonna trump up, no pun intended, the dollar amount, and you still wet behind the ears. I've seen just locally cats are being practiced 20 years and they've only had 7 jury trials. And then you got a cat like Justin who's been in practice for 6 and has 30 this year. Right? I mean, so it just sometimes I don't equate that dollar amount, but if a judge is saying this is evidence 101, I do also think that judges can, bro. And we talk about certain judges here, St. Joseph County. Justin has a couple favorites. I'm not gonna get in trouble for saying anything. I love all the judicial officers. Right. Every last one of them. I love all of them. Love every last, and I hope they're watching. I love you all. But at the same time, I think there are times when stuff is said that no matter how experienced and or prepared you are, it just comes out of left field. And for some, it's hard to, when you get knocked off track, get back on. Others could bounce and get back to it. Shout out to Carter, because I think he taught cats how to do that real talk. To throw you just, and you still had to, or you got derailed and never be able to come back on, get back on tracks. But no, I think, yeah, like I say, but for the record, I just want the record to show that I love every judge in Elkhart County.
Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. This is a great discussion. I just wanted to point out a couple of things, and then I'll let you guys give your last points. I love trial is always about picking the right thing. Their theme was this is not a contract. The plaintiff's theme, Willie Gary's theme was this is about greed, and he sold it with the evidence. They sold greed. They sold that greed versus nobody understood whether it's a contract or not. And so strategy is like civil is really about strategy. In criminal too, but especially civil, you can really muddy the waters about what the law is and what it's not. Race played huge in this, and we talked about it a little bit, but I think that's you got to know your audience. You got to know your audience and know where you're going to do. I thought it was interesting how they filed it in a certain county before so that was all about strategy. I thought it was interesting. So I think the jury and the audience standing up, that never happened. I've never seen that happen. I think the judge would kick everybody out if that did happen. I mean, I won jury trials where I'm going hard, like Willie Gary. As soon as I'm done, it's silent. Like I don't hear nothing. Like I'm like, dang, I don't get a or nothing. So I thought that was pretty.
That's here, bro. You're not getting nothing out of St. Joe County.
Everybody just like,
and you go too hard, you might get an objection.
Right, exactly. I get objections, but yeah, no.
DC, somebody might jump over the bar, bro. They might.
Right. So I thought that was a bit, unrealistic, theatrical. I love the legal team. I think Attorney Ferrari talked about that. I thought it was interesting about his style of dress. Like he was really comfortable with who he was and his style, and this is the way I do things, and like even the fact that he offered a huge settlement offer, the settlement offer was real high in the beginning. Just the fact of just how he does things. Everybody has their style, and when you're hiring a lawyer, you got to figure out what their style is. What's going to be the theme of my case? What's your record? What do you feel? How would you approach it? I think these are all good things when you're trying to hire someone, and you got to think about who are you suing, right, and where are you suing them at. These are very, very key things to think about when you're hiring an attorney. And yeah, I think I think that was good. I think that even though race played an issue, I think that what really Gary, I love how the movie brought out what really Gary and his client had in common, which was they all about family. Like Willie Gary started his being a lawyer because somebody screwed over his sons and his family, right? And then this guy, this older white guys like, listen, man, like I have a legacy to protect, right? I have a funeral, this is for my family, right? And I think that with everything, even no matter where you're at, sometimes you can't get a full black jury. You have to figure out how can you connect with, and what are some common things that we all can connect on, and so like we're more alike than we think. So that was just some of my final thoughts. But yeah, I'll start with you, the dreaded Esquire, Jacoby, the dreaded Esquire, Whitley, the DC lawyer GOAT. So what are your final thoughts on movie?
This is my final thoughts right here.
Okay.
Besides attorney Justin Camper, besides attorney Maumbo Mbanza, and besides attorney Shannon Barari, this is what I want to say. I want to shout out attorney Stephen L. Washington. I want to shout out attorney Jeremy Mason. I want to shout out attorney Greg Copeland. I want to shout out attorney AJ Amisa. I want to shout out attorney Rob Walker. They are all black attorneys, and they are some of the best I've ever seen do this. From strategy to actual opening and closing arguments, all of it. So since I see a lot of Willie Gary and everyone I just mentioned, that's what I want to close with. I want to close by giving roses and accolades to all the attorneys I just mentioned, and just let you guys know how much you guys inspired me to be a great attorney, because I'm just trying to emulate y'all and be as good as y'all.
That's very humble, but they call you the GOAT for a reason, man. They call you the dreaded Esquire for the reason. Attorney Willie.
But it's probably not the reason you think.
Yeah. So, attorney Shannon Buari, final thoughts. And then, we'll go to attorney Maumbo.
I thought it was a well-deserved biopic, if you will, for somebody who, I'm going to say I've at least looked up and even tried to emulate to a certain extent for some time. It's amazing to me that, at one point he was the 5th highest grossing attorney in the world, and yet nobody knew who he was.
Wow.
It's same with Johnny. Yes, people know Johnny from the OJ trial, but I think Johnny should also have a movie made about him as well, right? I mean, I think for what he means to folk in our community, right? When we get so few people to idolize or even look up to, I'm not gonna say idolize, I'm gonna say look up to, that do this and do this at the level to where, they do call me the giant killer. I think is huge. One of the stories Willie Gary tells is the office he works out of today used to be a hotel, and he was there. He used to work there as a dishwasher. And there were folk that appreciated him, and there were folk that treated him like he was second class. So after he bought the building, he kept the folk that treated him like he was a citizen, and he fired all the people that treated him like he was second class, right? But he still has the dishwasher in the building. Right, so it's always been about humble roots, man. And I think just down to earth, having conversation with him when we were at the Boston conference in Atlanta, like what he says, if you Google a Willie Gary speech, is I think just the way he lives his life, man. But I agree with Cole. Shout out to all the folk that are out there trying to do it and make a difference. And if it doesn't inspire you, at least if you're in the practice, man, if it doesn't inspire you to do anything else, at least just be better than the person sitting across the table from
you. Yeah. Words.
Oh, one more thing, Justin.
Yes, sir.
And respect and honor for Shannon and his love for Willie Gary, because he's right. I had never heard Willie Gary's name, but for kicking it with Shannon. And Shannon was like, "You don't know who this is?" And he's right. He opened up the laptop, bro. You need to know. And he educated me.
Right.
Let me tell you. Let me do saying cigars. Man, let me tell y'all. But I want to say this, because y'all know I forgive, but I don't forget. Valpo did us a disservice by not letting him speak. I'm done.
Oh, huge disservice. We talked about that though, Justin, at one of the lunches. Remember that he was going to do this y'all's commencement, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, well and he leave a $100,000 check everywhere he goes, so they might not have been closed had it took. Yeah, but I'm. But I think that speaks credence to how I'm gonna say for underappreciated or even undervalued, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Right. So, for whatever reason you decided to against allowing this individual to do the commencement, I think if you would have truly checked his track record, right? I mean, I think at one point he hadn't lost a jury trial in 12 to 15 years, right? I mean, so I think if again, folk would have checked his track record, bro. And I heard it like, man, I wish he'd have done ours. No disrespect to the lady that did ours, but I would have rather listened to Willie Gary speak. Like I said, it was one of those things where I met him, Daryl Parks, and Ben Crump all in Atlanta, at least before Ben Crump blew up. But it was just like, out of all three of them, it was like, yo, I want to be like him, right? Like, never mind the wings of justice, never mind the flashy suits, the glitz and the glamour. It was like, yo, when he spoke, everybody in the room paid attention. And it was like, he's telling us about his life. This isn't even a closing argument. I could just imagine being on a jury when he was giving, and I know we looking to close, but he started down that track in the burial and they just kind of went away. But just off the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, it's like, it's a wrap. So yeah, man, I would wish, like I say again, folk like this, at least staples and or pillars in our community, get their flowers well before they turn 60 or 70, and they can't, So I'm done, man. But yeah, I've been a Willie Gary fan before the burial, baby.
True fan. Yeah, we did have some drama. He was supposed to speak at our law school, and I don't know what you guys want to call it, but
his offer was declined.
White folks got in the way. We'll just say it like that. We'll leave it right there.
Because Jen Lee and Dad, and they real cool. They went to undergrad together.
So I was going to also shout out Jen Lee. I didn't know if she played a role, but I remember some of those facts. So I wanted to shout out Jen Lee for that as well. Absolutely.
Yep. Nate Lee, Mr. Lee, and Willie Gary went to undergrad together.
Right.
So yeah, man, I'm done talking about it though. I could talk about it all day.
Yeah. All right. Attorney Mayambo. So Attorney Willie and Attorney Buhari took all of your time. So you really have about 30 seconds to come out with your hottest fire.
I only need
good luck.
I only need 59 seconds. And with regard to what took place today and the lesson from the movie, folks, always trying to reduce your agreement, whatever that agreement is, in writing. If you do, and if you don't, at least try to keep a paper trail of some facts, documents, letters, email, nowadays text messages as well, because they can come into play. Because although unsigned contract can present huge challenges in court for enforcement, you can still prevail if you seek legal advice from a trained professional that can help you navigate through the complexity of trying to establish the existence of a contract based on the conduct of the parties and the circumstances. So that, I believe, can be done, but to avoid that, and try to reduce any agreement and every agreement you have in writing. Take a screenshot of something, and get a signature one way or the other. And we are a phone call away. You can reach us, and if you have any questions, we can answer, and then we go from there. And that leaves us with about 59 seconds to address what we can discuss. We could discuss next week or next month, whatsoever.
Yes, next month we are coming back next month.
We're coming back on immigration because I'm sick and tired of all these people calling the immigrants criminal and rapists and all the kind of stuff. Okay, we coming back.
All right, so I
let
almost about to open up a
the mayor
can
of Chicago do his job. Let him do his job. Okay.
So
All right.
The views of the lawyers does not reflect the views of everybody here.
I love it when he's fired up, man. I love to see y'all fired up.
I love every judge in St. Joseph County. I'm just putting that out there.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I think it's an inspiring story. He came from poverty, came from a migrant worker to being one of the top 5 highest grossing attorneys in the country. Shows you what you can do with a dream, what you can do with a gift, what you can do here in America. I think it was inspiring, definitely. But yeah, feel free to follow us. We are coming back. We are going to be consistent. Our fans have asked us to be consistent. So we're going to come back. We're going to try to be here every 4th Saturday. And we're going to talk about legal stuff. And so feel free to comment, write to us, and say, hey, I want you guys to cover this. I want you to talk about this. Hey, I want you guys to debate immigration. Let us know. We'll debate immigration. We'll have a conversation about it. We'll try to make it informative and entertaining and fun. But I thank you guys for listening. Like I said, we're all attorneys, so feel free to reach out to us with any legal questions, any legal comments, or you want to hire us for our services. And the last thing I want you guys to remember to stay legal. So thank you guys so much. Thanks for listening to Stay Legal Podcast. Talk to you soon.